Have you ever heard the phrase, the customer is always right? I was in the business world and I absolutely hated that phrase. And I understood the concept. The concept was, we are going to have such great customer service that whatever they want, whatever they need, you give it to them, right? Well, I remember this one time as a manager, I had this employee. And he was a new guy. He was a really good guy, and he was just learning, and he was doing his job, trying to provide good customer service. But this customer came in, and he was just so incredibly rude. And the whole time I'm just thinking, this is his first week on the job, and this guy, a customer, is making his life miserable here. And the whole time, this guy was just yelling at him, cussing at him, doing everything possible, and he kept on yelling, the customer is always right. And so I stepped in because he demanded to see the manager. So I said, okay, I'm here. And he started doing the same thing, yelling at me, saying, the customer is always right. And I told him, you know what? I believe in customer service. I've won awards for customer service, but you are one evidence and proof that customers are not always right. And he just looked at me and was like, you said that? And I was like, yeah, I said that. And I was like, I know. Sherwin-Williams, big Fortune 500 company, is probably going to close its doors because we're going to lose $30 of your business. I'm so sorry. But he was just utterly shocked that I didn't believe in the idea that the customer is always right. And I thought about that for a moment, and I've been thinking about these ideas where the last few weeks in our classes and so forth, people have been bringing up the concept of saying, you know what, people in this world have this mentality that everything should be how exactly they want it. It's Burger King, have it your way. You know, you don't want pickles, you don't want mayonnaise, good, you don't have to have them. Or the idea of, you know what, you deserve this. Who are you? Who are you to deserve anything? And I thought about that, but that's really the idea that our culture has kind of taught us. That the customer is always right. That everyone's meant to serve you. That everyone has their own kingdom and that you are the Lord. And everyone ought to bow down to you. And even in the church mentality, we've actually kind of bought into this. And this is one of the reasons why I honestly believe the church has been shrinking. It's because when people come in, we have bought into the idea that the customer is always right. We try to cater to people and say, you know what, Jesus isn't enough, so let me sell you on Jesus. Let me market you on Jesus. And if whatever you want entertainment, we'll give it to you. If you want the preacher to preach less Bible, yeah, we'll do that too. Oh, you want us to give you something? Okay, we'll give it to you. We've really kind of permeated this idea that you deserve this, you want it, and so we'll give it. But then I read the Word of God in the Scriptures, and I just get a different idea. That Jesus is looking for true followers of Him, and He's not looking for the ones who have to be bought off to follow Him. Not those who have to be manipulated to have Him. He's looking for the ones who will follow Him regardless. And when I read the Word of God, the more and more I actually read it, and it says, and I get the idea, it's not this, the customer is always right, the Christian's always right, let me do what you want, let the church do what you want. Because when I read the Word of God, I read that we're not patrons, that Jesus is catering to, because we're the Lord's. But in fact, when we have a faith that proclaims that Jesus is the Lord of our lives, at that moment, when we go into baptism, when we commit our lives, it's at that point in time where we say, I am no longer the Lord of my life, Jesus is the Lord of my life, and I am now His servant. And that's why at the end of our lives, we want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. We don't want to hear the words, good, well done, good and faithful patron. Let me buy you off. Because Jesus wasn't enough. The more I read the Word of God, the more my heart gets convicted because I just realize I want to serve. Because that's what my Master did. And in fact, Jesus blessed us by the opportunity of allowing us to be His servants. Because In our world, being a servant is not a popular thing. It's not a great thing. It's something that's kind of embarrassing. But in reality, being the servant of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, that is a high honor. Any of us would just be like, I wish I could do that. You know, sometimes in that sports games, you'll see people waving their hands out, asking for autographs. Or you'll read people reading the latest news about the latest Hollywood star on their iPhone. And I just thought, what if we had that kind of passion for Jesus Christ? What if we desired him as much as we desired Russell Wilson and the Seahawks? What if we desired him like one of the Hollywood stars like Tom Hanks? And we just say, you know what, that would be cool to meet him. You know what? We would be gushing over people like that and kind of serving them. But how much more so the King of Kings and giving you the privilege to do that? You know, when I think about Christianity is a call for service. You give up any rights to demand anything when you become a Christian. But when you give up those rights, God blesses you in ways that you can't even imagine. You become his child. You get to have salvation. You get to be a part of his church. You get to grow closer to your Creator. You get heaven. I just think those are all things that I don't deserve, but that's exactly what servants of the King of Kings receive. So is it a good thing to be a servant of the King of Kings? It absolutely is. When I thought about the sermon, I thought about how in our society it's not so popular to serve. But I want you to take a moment and think about the people who in your life who have changed your life. Are they the ones who have been takers? How do you feel about those one-sided relationships where you're the one giving and giving and giving and they just take? Do you look at that relationship and say, wow, I'm happy. That's the life I want. That's the relationships that I desire. I mean, I think about even the relationship with Jesus, and sometimes I feel convicted because sometimes I do that with Jesus. Because he's ultimately blessing me with so many blessings, and I just say, God, please give, take. When all in reality, I should be saying, God, you and your Son are the rulers of my life. How can I give to you? How can I sacrifice my life for you? How can I imitate a life of sacrifice just as Jesus did? That's a hard and mature way of thinking, but that's exactly what Jesus has called us to do. And in fact, Jesus has called us all to be servants. And when I think about this idea of servitude, I want us to look at our lives, because oftentimes in our lives, we're trying to achieve greatness. The more I study people, the more I get to know people, the more I actually counsel people, I've actually came to a conclusion. And one of the conclusions that I came up with is that pretty much everyone in the world has low self-esteem. Pretty much everyone has low self-esteem. I mean, even the people who are very prideful and arrogant, why is it that they're so prideful and arrogant? Why is it so important for them to be acknowledged? Why is it so important for them to be worshipped by others? A lot of it's because of low self-esteem. And because of this, we get into this rat race where we're trying to be viewed as these great and amazing and intelligent and good-looking, powerful, rich people. And we want people to look at us. We want people to serve us. And that's how the world is determined. That's how you become great. You want to become great? Win American Idol. Want to become great? Be a model in New York. But that's not worldly, that's worldly wisdom. Christ has taught us that true greatness comes not from how many people serve you, but how many people you serve. And this is why I've been emphasizing this, and I keep on repeating it week after week, because I want it through your minds that Jesus is the greatest man of all, not just because he was a son of God, but because he was a servant of all. He selflessly laid himself down for all of us. In Mark, the 9th chapter, verse 33 to 35, the disciples are arguing. And they were arguing and talking about greatness. And who would be the greatest among them? I mean, they had a view of Jesus that he was going to sit on this nationalistic throne and that he was going to overthrow the Romans. And so sitting at his sides and being the greatest, that would be an honor. But Jesus taught them, you don't become great by sitting at my side. You don't become great